Hello and welcome to BigJollyPolitics.com and our 2014 Republican primary candidate interviews. Today we're following up with Dwayne Stovall, candidate for U.S. Senate, running against John. We must have amnesty Cornyn. Good morning, Dwayne. How are you?
Good morning.
You liked that intro, did you?
Yeah, we must have amnesty. I love that.
Well, he came out this week and said that there's no way we can win this year without it, but there's no way we can win in 2016 unless we sort of provide legalization for people that are in the country illegally. And quite frankly, I'm a little confused. If they're in here illegally and can't vote, how does that matter?
Um, it doesn't. My issue is that it just shows how disconnected he is from the state of Texas and citizens of Texas. He's just not in the loop at all. I still don't understand why we're not talking about the border. How do you how do you have a conversation about immigration of any kind if you have a porous border? It flies in the face of the whole discussion. So.
Yeah, I hear you. I was pretty surprised to hear that him and Boehner joining forces on that one. That was pretty funny. But anyway, let's the it's been a while since you've been on Big Jolly, and the readers have the big S word. They got some specific questions for you. But for right now, let's why don't you give us an update from the trail, as it were, and how your campaign is going, and what do you see happening out there?
I can tell you that things are moving very, very well. Of course, I'm talking to you as a layman, so this is a brand new experience for me. And generally speaking, I would say you would think you were winning if you were just listening to everybody that shook your hand and said everything's great.
Yeah.
The issue for me is we do have almost 1,000 volunteers. I do have somewhere in the neighborhood of 18 or 20 regional coordinators. I have a lot of very, very dedicated, loyal followers, and when I say followers, I mean volunteers who understand the message, who are wanting to get on that correction cycle that I'd like to push forward, which is the federalism and divesting the federal government of power, and they are very, very adamant about it. So my interest level is at a very, very high level. Um, Participation is very high. Money will always be behind the curveball because you're dealing with a guy that raises money all over the country or all over the world, and he's got so much money coming in from outside the state. We don't have that, but what I do have is grassroots support, and I've got an abundance of it. I blow him away in sweat equity. Uh, so as just a business owner and a hardworking Texan for all my life, I get that. So we'll outwork him. I'll tell you that much. It's
I
been
don't
very,
know,
very good.
Dwayne. I think when he got up on that horse to give that photo shoot, he probably sweated a little there.
I get a kick out of the whole cowboy hat thing. And for people that don't know, I actually used to steer wrestle, and I did a little stint in the PRCA too. So when I see him wearing the cowboy hat, putting on the Big John thing, I kind of giggle.
Yeah, I think we all do.
Yeah.
Okay, well, back to the campaign show. What are you seeing when you go to these forums and all that? What's like maybe the biggest one or two issues for this particular race that you see? The people that are telling you and they want answers about, and they're disappointed or whatever with the current status. What do you see out there on that?
Obamacare is that's the big low-hanging fruit. Everybody hates that. We all know it's unconstitutional. We can't understand how the federal government's gotten itself into a position where it's oppressing us with this dictatorial, unconstitutional behavior. We get that. That's like low-hanging fruit. Um, I would say above and beyond all, the message that I brought forward that's catching so much interest is the fact that we all know that you can't live in the on the path that we are living with that concentrated amount of power at the central government and the amount of debt that we're creating, and the debt and deficit that this country's run over the last few decades is very, if you wanted to simplify it, it places all of the citizens in servitude through taxation to this federal government, or national government I call it now. But we're literally enslaving ourselves and our children and future generations to servitude to this national government every single time we allow them to expand the debt and to create more liability on the citizens. And I'm unwilling to go that direction anymore at all. And that really relates to a lot of people. So the fiscal issues are a big portion of what people are bringing to me. So
Okay. Well, that's I keep hearing the what we talked about earlier, the immigration and Obamacare. So I'm glad to see people are still focused on the debt and the fiscal issues because like you said, in the long run, that's what's going to
Well,
kill us.
the immigration comes in. It's like very, very hot for a moment when they bring up something on the national media that's going on in Senate or the House, and when they bring up immigration, it becomes very, very hot. Uh, people people will get mad about immigration, and then they'll fall back to fiscal issues, and they'll get mad about immigration. You're hitting on two of probably the most priority issues we're dealing with today. The voting aspect of the amnesty and the people who are pushing forward for this completely crazy idea of giving voting rights to anybody who doesn't understand anything about a republic or federalism or limited government or any of that, just blatantly giving voting rights. That's a huge issue. It's all affected. All of these things are affected by the fiscal issues. So it's a little intrinsic. It's you can tie it all together through the funding aspects of our government, but you're nailing that. I mean, it's immigration, fiscal, Obamacare. Some people like to reach out there and grab for the Second Amendment issues. I'm not as concerned about Second Amendment issues as some because, like I told a state representative the other day, I don't really need their help to protect my guns. And I'm in Texas, and I can tell you that there's millions of Texans who really don't need help protecting their guns. They'll
Yeah.
come together and they'll do it, but that's a big red meat for the masses. But we're all pretty clear on the same page on the Second Amendment. So
Yeah, I tell you what, I was just dismayed over the holidays when I saw those people lining up in Connecticut to register their guns.
yeah, amazing.
I can't imagine that happening in Texas ever.
No, no,
That
no. That's amazing. That was absolutely amazing to me.
that was almost heartbreaking.
Yes, yes.
How could these people let themselves be put under the thumb of their government like that? It's just beyond reason. Okay, well let's turn to a couple of the big specifics here, and you know. This one comes from Stan Burton. He's a longtime a friend and reader, and he wants to know about auditing the Fed. Do you support auditing the Fed? What do you think would come of it? Just generally, what do you think about that?
Oh, I absolutely think we need to audit the Fed, and I think we need to audit the Fed. We need to audit the Pentagon, all these areas where they have, secret accounting operations or secret spending operations where the public don't have any access and don't have any idea how the funding is being created, much less how it's being spent. And yeah, we absolutely need to have what Obama called the most transparent. Yeah, right. Well, that transparency has to take place, and I think we would find out that the Fed doesn't have anything. It's a house of cards, and all it does is create the illusion of purchasing our debt and creating more debt, and it is what we all think it is. We don't purchase, or let me put it this way: there is no free exchange of goods and services with the Fed. The Fed creates debt out of nothing. I think it is. I'm one of those that's oversimplified on this thing. I think if you stopped renewing the charter of the Fed and just disallowed all the debt that it created over the years and started new with a do-over, that would be one of the best ways we could go about trying to correct this debt issue we have. But right now, they still spend somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 or $90 billion a month, and their quantitative easing infinity. And we're just going to keep devaluing the dollar at the rate we're going until whatever happens happens. So
Yeah, they're quantitatively easing the profits of Wall Street investors, basically.
yeah, it's like a sugar high. They keep them injected with their addiction. And the funny thing is, when you hear Obama or even people on the Republican side talking about having to do this, they inject this phony. They're falsely or unnaturally keeping the interest rates low and trying to see that they're going to wait until the economy catches up. Well, when you have people losing their jobs consistently and you have the biggest growth rate being in the government side, which is not that's a liability. Anybody that goes to work for the government creates a liability on the rest of us. So there's no positive outlook to this at all. And all they're doing is creating this debt with the idea that it's going to correct itself at some point. They only have one tool in the shed, so to speak, and
Right.
that tool's done. It's over. So Wow. What do you do with it? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And the next one is on the federal judiciary. Should we have term limits for federal judges? And what do you think what is the constitutionality of recess appointments, especially in the mass numbers that the president recently did?
Oh yeah, that was unconstitutional. His what they call it. Uh, he made appointments while they were supposedly out of session.
Right.
Well,
Recess.
recessed appointments. Yes. The problem with that is that those recess to be to be legally described as being at recess, those are set by rules of the Senate. So if the Senate says they are officially in recess, they are. The president can't inadvertently go, well, they're not there today. So they're at recess, so I'm going to put somebody in while they're not there. It doesn't work that way. So if the Supreme Court comes back with any other ruling, then it was an unconstitutional move on his part. We're in deep stuff, even deeper than we were. I think it'll be found to be unconstitutional. It better.
Yeah.
He had no business doing that. Those rules, everybody needs to be clear. When they are at recess, that is between the breaks, the big breaks. They can go into recess for a week or 2 or 3 weeks or whatever, and the Senate can set the rules up to say we will readjourn at this point. That's not recess as the constitutionality of him making appointments. If it was between the 101st and the 102nd during the break, that's at recess. If they're at a break at Christmas time, that's not a recess. That's a break. I mean, it's to me it's clear, but we'll see.
And what about term limits for federal judges?
Oh, I think we're there. I think it's time to do that. We are so beyond, and I don't know if you and I have ever talked about this before. Well, the original construct of the Constitution was based on scale, and people don't talk about scale. When you only had, oh, I don't know, what did we have, 2.5, 3 million people in all 13 states when the
Yeah.
Constitution was ratified? Okay, we've got almost 10 times that amount in Texas today. So the idea that the people are going to elect uh, representatives who are going to then appoint or advise and consent the right appointments to those offices, I personally think that was a mistake to have a lifetime appointment. I think people like excuse me, well, that's terrible. Thomas Jefferson, ooh, referencing my '70s TV show. Uh, Thomas Jefferson was very clear on it. You know, he wasn't there when they created the Constitution. He wasn't there during the Bill of Rights of the first Congress, but he told them that the way they designed the judiciary, that the Constitution would be mere wax in the hands of the judiciary, and that it would mold it to mean things, to mean whatever it wanted it to mean. And he was exactly right. So the lifetime appointment, I'm not there with that anymore. There's 316 million of us, and you can break that down. We're led by 546 people in Washington, and if you want to break that down, we're actually managed by 5 of 9 in the Supreme Court, and that's a formula for disaster, if you ask me. I mean, historical cycles have proven when you drive so much power to so few, you end up in a really, really bad place, and I think we're headed there fast. I would like to see them termed out myself.
Okay. And the next one comes from Betty Avery. She wants to know how would you represent the state of Texas from the side of transportation, basic and specifically retention of tax money at the gas pump, basically keeping our money in Texas for Texas roads.
Man, I like her. I don't know. I've never met her, but I like her. I would like to see the state legislature of Texas. I would like to see the state legislature in every state start researching how they can go about creating a negotiation with the federal government to say, okay, look, we've had a DOT. Our Department of Transportation in Texas has been around since 1910, I think. It's very good. We know what we're doing. We don't need any help from the federal. We're going to opt out of federal highway funding. At the same time, since we're opting out, we don't want you taking that percentage of our gas tax that you charge in the state of Texas that goes directly to federal highway funding. We're going to take care of it here. Now, what she's hitting on, I don't know if she may already know this. If we were to do that and to maintain that money here, we would have more than enough money to, as the way I understand it, we would have more than enough money to balance our budget and manage our own affairs just on that.
So we just had a technical interruption, and I got Dwayne back now. So just in case we
Just
missed that last one on transportation, Dwayne's going to go back over it a little bit.
Yeah, for clarity, I would like to see the state legislature of Texas, and I would advise publicly that our state legislature opt out of highway funding and find a way to remove themselves from that federal tax and keep that money in the state of Texas. I think that's a negotiating tool we could actually bring to the table. They're going to bark very loud, and they're going to say, "No, we've got to use that for everybody else." But ultimately, it's Texans and people in Texas who are paying that money. We need to keep it here and manage our own affairs with it. And by the way, for historical sake, there is no constitutional authority for the federal government to be involved in our highway funding, no matter what you say about postal roads. If you go back to Madison, the last act he did as president was to veto a what was called the bonus bill, and that was the very first, if you want to call it, highway funding bill. It was a canals and infrastructure bill that the Congress decided we really need to do this for the big the states need all of this transportation aspect. And he said, I've been telling you, if you want to do this, you've got to amend the Constitution to take that authority. Otherwise, you don't have the authority. And because you didn't do it, I'm going to have to veto it. And he did. And so, yeah,
Too bad we don't have James around today, huh?
right, right.
Well, that was a perfect segue into the next question, actually, which is what are your thoughts on the constitutional justification for all these acronyms here? BATF, EPA, HHS, DOE, Department of Transportation, Department of Education, IRS. What is the constitutional justification for all that? IRS, I guess, is constantly justified, but what about the rest?
Yeah, the IRS is a creature of the 13th or the 16th Amendment in 1913, that wonderful year in our history. But what it does today is an abomination of the Constitution. The idea that the IRS is going to come to your home dressed like SEAL Team 6 and hold a gun to your head and say you will comply or you will be jailed or worse. I don't think that's the context of the Constitution, the way it was designed. I can tell you how that started. Is that, as far as I understand, my own study, I think, is the APA. It's the Administrative Procedural Act in 1947. The government was growing so fast, David, and they needed, they had so much they had to deal with that they didn't have time to deal with these small regulatory issues. So they passed this act to give the agencies the power, and it is the power, to write their own policies. It was procedural. It's supposed to help them out, keep it all out of Congress, and that's exactly what it did. Anybody that understands the regulations written by a bureaucrat who's unelected in a cubicle in Washington, who writes down a note on a piece of paper and hands it to their boss, and their boss goes, "Oh yeah, that's what we need to do," and they pass it up the line, and next thing you know, it's a regulation. Well, another word for regulation is law. And the next day, you have a member of EPA at your farm with guns and flak jackets telling you, your cattle are putting out too much methane, and this is what you got to do. But your congressman, which by the way, and we all know in the Constitution, the Congress is supposed to legislate law. Well, the vast majority of the law we deal with today is not legislated by Congress. It is passed by agencies, and they are creating their own law as they go along. There's so much law being put out there that your congressman has never seen the floor of the Congress. But that's another issue altogether. But these
Right.
agencies are inherently unconstitutional. We have been inherently taught that they are because the Supreme Court says they are, and I'm just that guy. I'm that guy that says, funny thing about that Constitution, it says that the Supreme Court is going to have the authority to rule over constitutionality of things that fall within that framework of those enumerated delegated powers. It doesn't say, oh, and by the way, these 9 individuals are going to rule over all the states, over everything they do all the time, every day. It doesn't say that. They have decided that it says that. They decided that in the 20th century. It started around 1920 or so. But that's what we refer to as the progressive era, the progressive movement. The Supreme Court has taken powers unconstitutionally by its own edict for the last 100 years or longer.
Yeah, it's created serious, serious problems in this country.
Very much so.
The next question is from Landon Esty. He wants, in other words, he's thinking you're going to get elected. He says, seriously, he wants to know how in the heck you expect not to be eaten alive by the Beltway powers once you get there.
It's pretty easy. If you never, this is what makes it so much easier for me to talk to everybody. If you have no political alliances, such as of myself, if you come to the table with no obligations to anyone but the state of Texas, then the only way you can be corrupted or go down the wrong path is to accept those alliances. Once you're in the Beltway and you created these alliances and you have these different affiliations and relationships that are outside the bounds of your job, you're automatically put into that cloud of influence. I come with none of that, and I speak openly and very, very clear about this. The idea of being a citizen statesman is not lost on me. I want a citizen statesman. I don't want groomed politicians. I don't want people who have been educated, groomed, and brought up in an atmosphere where they're pre-picked. They're destined to do this. Their resume says they are designed to be in public policy. No, the way the framers set it up, you as a citizen are free to enter this realm. And if the citizens around you like the context of your character, this is the original design. If they like the context of your character and they trust who you are, they want you to represent them. It didn't have anything to do with your alliances with a particular family name or a particular line of individuals who are very closely related to the Beltway or to politics. That's the worst thing we could get. I think experience, what everybody calls experience, well, what experience do you have in government? I think experience is part of what's gotten us here. People who are overly connected to government and not connected to people and their states. Senator Cornyn is an excellent example. He's so disconnected from us. He literally did an interview with NPR a couple of weeks ago where he said that the NDAA and the Patriot Act and all these things, the people in Texas, he literally said the people in Texas, they believe that they're willing to give up some of their liberties in the name of security.
Oh my! I guess I missed that one. NPR.
NPR, and I was floored. I thought, well, man, you don't know this Texan, and you don't know any of the Texans I know, because we're unwilling to give up any liberty in the cause of the collective security.
Goodness, maybe he's talking to Wendy Davis supporters.
Well,
Wow, I'm floored. I'm gonna have to look that one up.
look it up.
That's just bizarre.
Yeah, I've quoted it on my Facebook page so people could see and as a matter of fact, I put the interview on there. So.
Okay, good, good. I'll believe me. We'll check that one out. The next one is, and then we'll wrap it up after this one. This is specific to our coastline, so I don't know. You're up in Cleveland. You might have heard of this. We've got a lot of problems down here with flooding, and so we have this thing called the Bigger Water Act, which is going to raise our flood insurance rates up, and that's federal subsidy. There's a whole thing to talk about on that, and then we got the Ike Dike and the port maintenance. So basically, Charles Miracle is asking, what do you know about the coastline? Basically, is what he's asking, and then what do you think about stuff like the Bigger Waters Act and the Ike Dike and that?
I'm going to give you a little preface. I worked in the Marine Department for Atlantic Richfield, which turned into Lyondell Citgo for 13 and a half years, dealing with ships and tankers that come in through the Gulf, through the ship channel of Houston, the Eastern Ship Channel, and all of the acts and the federal impositions onto the coastline. I'm still, even though I say it's a huge undertaking, I still see that as a state issue. There is no authority for the federal government to involve itself in our coastline, and if we are going to manage insurance requirements or any of those types of things, as Texans, we have the right to do that. I don't like the edicts that come out of the federal government that tell Texans how we're going to manage our coastline or how we're going to implement rules and regulations affecting our coastline or any of the industry that goes on the coastline. So for me, it's clear cut. I would rather we as Texans manage those things, those acts and any of the regulatory issues that come out, whether it's EPA related or insurance related or FEMA flood related or any of that. I just don't see it being a positive coming out of the federal government as a mandate. I think that needs to be left to us. So, whether they're right or wrong, I generally think if it came from the federal government, it's probably wrong. But if
Right.
regardless of right or wrong, I think they need to be managed by us and not be managed by them. We can argue about whether or not they're correct or not here.
Right. Okay. Well, that's fair enough. Anything else for you today? What's on
Uh,
top of your mind that we missed and didn't talk about?
I can just tell you this is a rare bird. This race to me, it's going to be very fluid. You and I are speaking today, and what is it, the 18th of January? I can tell you that over the next 2 weeks, it's going to change a lot. Um, there's it's not outside the bounds of me making a dent in this race. It's absolutely uh, possible for me to be in a runoff with John Cornyn, if not win it outright. I'm telling you, there is a grassroots movement that is going to show itself over the next couple of weeks, and it's significant. I could just wait and see.
A little teaser for us.
Yeah,
All right. Well, thanks, Dwayne, for joining us again, and we'll check back in and see how your campaign's going in a few weeks. And we really appreciate your time in Big Jolly Politics.
I'm easy access. You should know that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to you again.
All right. Take care, man.
All right, thank
Have
you.
a good day.
You too.